in many, many ways. What defines us as a species did begin suddenly and came out of something preceding. And when any culture gives you its creation myth, it is almost never creation out of nothing. It's always out of pre-existing things. Some radical new configuration occurred suddenly, in which what we call humans started to think of themselves as humans. Suppose there was a species we'll call pre-human or proto-human, which went through, let's say, an event in which the tail of a comet swept across the Earth, filled the atmosphere with dust, and everything turned dark for years. But just enough light for some proto-humans to survive. Let's then imagine that a clearing, slow perhaps, by human standards, started to show some radiant configuration in the sky, now at last visible. Not there before the comet's tail swept over them. Or perhaps there, but the brains of the proto-humans got transformed by things in that cometary tail. Electricity can do things to change the brain. So they now see with their, let's say, reconfigured brains, some radiant configuration in the sky. And they have very, very basic instincts about seeing what it is. This may be before language. In other words, they weren't necessary. They were not the humans who could just tell stories about things to give them meaning. This is the earliest humans, and the ability to speak language may have come along with the reconfiguration of the brain at this event. So let's fast forward to another catastrophe. These proto-humans have become humans in some sense. They've been moving around. They've learned to do things like use their opposable thumb and make weapons and use the weapons to hunt. So hunting is big. And in their caves, they draw pictures of their happy hunting grounds. And then another catastrophe occurs. Maybe even when they started hunting, they got territorial enough with their hunting skills and their weapons to go to war with other humans. So they know hunting, they know war. So up there, bodies are discharging electricity at each other. The humans are now advanced enough to make a story about it, saying that's a war. There are two beings up there making war on each other, just like we do down here sometimes. In other words, they have language and a tradition of some kind of storytelling to give meaning to experience. And so now they use those skills developed. This is a notional thought experiment. Skills developed during a long, stable period. And now their instinct is to make meaning out of this horrendous or radiantly beautiful thing they're seeing. So they tell stories. By comparison, I teach my course, I'll teach this fall for the 8th time, mythology, classical mythology. I just go global with it, and I have a textbook which helps me do it. So a great deal of the presentations by anyone in this conference about mythology will all use the methodology of global comparative myth. For instance, did you see Ev Cochran's Mars presentation? I'll tell you what he did at Mars. So Ev goes around the globe with this, that, and the other culture talking about Mars. Greek, Mesopotamian, Hindu, Chinese, Polynesian. And guess what? They all say that Mars has 4 attributes. The planet Mars in the sky has 4 attributes, minimum. He in fact said I could do 22 attributes, but he chose the big 4 to reach his audience. 1, he's a warrior. 2, he brings pestilence. 3, he is a god of the springtime. 4, he has to do with the underworld. All right? So if you find that somewhere in Polynesia as well as in Greece, what's going on? His answer, he then shows you. Have you seen any of the polar configuration reconstruction imagery? Well, so he shows you. And let me give you more attributes. This god is pimply. This god swells up. He is turgid. This god is red. So then he shows you the polar configuration evolving. In an earlier phase, the red planet Mars is, from our point of view, looking up at the north, in front of and smaller than some other planet behind it. Then, at a certain point, the configuration changes and Mars starts coming towards us. It swells, it is turgid, and we see this bigger and bigger red object. And ultimately, it gets close enough for us to see the geological, martiological configurations on it, well photographed by us now, which actually looks like there are a set of protuberances, like mountains, that look like pimples. Okay? Then you see the Great Canyon of Mars, a third of the planet. And one of the greatest moments of these Electric Universe conferences, I think it was in Las Vegas about 5 years ago, was the Saturday night movie, in which they gave us 3D glasses. We put them on, and it takes NASA photography of that Great Canyon. And you look down into the canyon in 3D, and you see these incredibly sharply etched features all the way to the bottom. That is some mega discharge of some other body close enough to Mars to have produced a huge, as it were, lightning bolt. Cut to Homer's Iliad, Book 5. Diomedes is on a rampage on the battlefield with the Trojans. And so the gods get involved. And Mars comes down and goes crazy. Ares. He is the god of going crazy in warfare. And wreaks havoc on the side of the Trojans, more or less, because Mars is totally unpredictable whose side he'll be on, okay? Another feature he has around the planet, he's blind, which means he's indiscriminate in his slaughter. Anyway, Athena, who is on the side of the Greeks and is definitely a goddess of measured, purposeful, defensive warfare, or at least warfare that is not indiscriminate slaughter, comes down because she is the help of heroes, the hope of heroes, and says to Diomedes, I'll stand at your side. Now you go get Ares. You know, it's pretty intimidating if you're a mortal hero to be told to go get a god. But Ares says, don't worry, I'll be at your side. So Diomedes does, and he puts a shaft into the belly of Ares, and Ares bellows like 10,000 men. What's going on? Well, if myth is not just fantasy, but can be history and fact, and you can entertain the physical, scientific possibility of a body like Mars coming so close to humans that we can see its mountains, aka pimples. And if we see the lightning discharge into its side, and hear incredible sound, what do? We say in our song, he would bellowed like 10,000 men.